What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I bring a version 1.0 deck list of the commanders in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. As always, I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe. Consider checking out the links in the description. I'd really appreciate it. Today, we're continuing to celebrate Innistrad. And today, we're talking about Greymond, Avacyn, Stalwart. Of course, best well known as the universes within printing of Rick, steadfast leader from the Walking Dead secret lair. But Greymond is an Innistrad character, obviously caring about the Church of Avacyn. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about Greymond since it kind of has its own stigma around it. But I have actually seen a couple of these decks out in the wild. Greymond is a 4-mana mono-white human soldier. It says when it comes into the battlefield, you get to choose 2 abilities from among First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. All humans we control have that ability, and as long as we have 4 more humans, our humans get a buff. This is, of course, great whether you're playing him in another deck or playing him as a commander, because First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink are great abilities, and the combination of those is very helpful. You know, if you already have something that's giving a lot of your tokens Vigilance, maybe you pick First Strike and Lifelink. There's a lot of ways you could decide which 2 you want, but the truth is we're going to get to 4 humans, that way we get the buff and just take advantage of the benefit that we're going to have from things like First Strike and Lifelink to just rule the board in combat. We're going to play a lot of our mono white protection to make sure our board stays safe as we continue to attack turn over turn, and then just twist that dial up to 10 a little bit more as we play the things that are going to allow us to hit even harder in combat, especially when you start looking at lifelink, right? Just basically keeping us alive, as we're hopefully just going to be gaining a ton of life as we do that combat. Well, the first thing to talk about is humans, and there's a lot of great humans at our disposal. We have things like Adeline, which is going to make us human tokens every time we attack, a great way to get us up to 4 humans, and all those human tokens that it makes attacking come in with that buff, right? Archetype of Courage gives all of our creatures First Strike, and then all of our opponent's creatures lose First Strike and can't gain it. This could be very useful if we see it before Greymond, because then Greymond can come down and just give Vigilance and Lifelink, and we know we have the First Strike if you do that. Bastion Protector gives our commander Indestructible, basically trying to just keep it alive a little bit more, making sure we get that buff for all of our creatures. Benalis Marshal giving another buff. Argon gives a nice buff whenever another human comes in. Our creatures get +1/+1 in Vigilance on a turn. Be able to take a big attack and get that buff. Boromir could protect our board by sacrificing itself and actually stop our opponents from casting free spells, which is a really nice thing, especially in this day and age in Commander. Coppercoat Vanguard giving each other human +1/+0 and Ward 1, a nice ability to help protect our commander if possible. We're going to play a couple light stacks pieces, and by that I mean, well, hard stacks for one of them in Drannith Magistrate. Opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. Help just continue to twist that knife in as we're already hearing our opponents to get the game in our favor. Same thing with Grand Abolisher during our turns. Opponents can't cast spells, activate abilities of artifact creatures or enchantments. Again, just try to take it so when it's our turn and we're going, and we're going to hurt our opponents as much as we can. Get that game over with. That is our goal. God of Souls might look odd because we're not playing a lot of Soul Sister effects in the deck, but it's good because every time you attack, you can pay 3 energy, and if you do, you could get a creature in the air with a couple counters on it. This is important because some of our creatures get even better when they're in the air and can't be blocked, right? And since we're getting an energy every time a human comes in, any creature comes in, we're going to have a lot of energy sitting around for God of Souls to start getting creatures in the air. And only 1 per combat, but I think it's still pretty useful. Hero Bladehold gives all of our creatures a little buff whenever it attacks. It can make some soldiers that are tapped in attacking. Note, the soldiers aren't humans, so they're not going to get Greymond's buff, but I don't think we really care when we start talking about some of the other buffs we have, especially when creatures enter the battlefield. Intrepid Adversary is a 2-mana 3/1 with Lifelink, but when it comes in, we can pay 1 and a white as many times as we want to, and it comes in with that many Valor counters, and all of our creatures get +1/+1 for each Valor counter on it. So, or, early game, maybe it's 4 mana, late game, maybe it's 10 mana. You could start to see where, paying more into mana into it really help. Probably one of my favorite cards to pair with Greymond is Quendi, Price of Femerith. So it has double strike. It says other creatures we control with First Strike have double strike, meaning that if it and Greymond are out at the same time when we pick First Strike for Greymond, now everybody has double strike, making even better, right, our attacks and hurting our opponents even more. Lost or Not Captive can start tapping things down whenever humans come in. allowing us to hopefully get through for some better damage. We get its human soldier on each one of our turns. Odric Lunarch Marshal might look odd, especially since Greymond's already handing out certain abilities. But it's important because it allows us to have all of our creatures potentially get more keywords. So it's at the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike. If a creature you control has first strike, same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So again, all we need to do is get any of those keywords on one of our creatures, and Lunarch puts it on all of them. This is important because although vigilance, first strike, and lifelink are already on Greymond, there are other creatures in the deck that have other abilities, and so we could start sharing them around and putting them on our entire board. Of course, we got to play Martial Tactician, or Master Tactician for Odric. If it and at least 3 other creatures block, we choose which creatures block and how they block, meaning we can actually go unblockable, get in for big damage. Thalia, right, have our opponents have their things come in tapped. And then Horn of Gondor can make a bunch of humans with its second ability for each human we control, just allow us to get more humans and more triggers of some of the other things we're going to talk about. But we're going deep on protection because we have to protect our board. And there's a lot of ways to do it. Brave the Elements can protect us from either combat or damage-based board wipes. Dawn's Truce, giving all of our permanents hexproof and indestructible. Flare of Fortitude can just give our whole board hexproof and indestructible and prevent our life total from changing. Flawless Maneuver, we can cast for free as long as we control our commander. Gives all of our creatures indestructible. Unbreakable Formation can give all of our creatures indestructible, but if we use it during our main phase, we get to put a counter on all of our creatures and get a big attack that turn by giving them Vigilance. And then Eldrazi Monument, right? Giving all of our creatures flying and indestructible, probably becoming very difficult for our opponents to deal with. And all we have to do is sack a creature every turn to keep it around. But that flying, I think, can make a huge difference in the course of 1 or 2 combats. But I think where we take Greymond and make it harder to deal with is by adding the things that are going to make us better in combat. Banner of Kinship, Coat of Arms, things that just give massive buffs to all of our humans, make them really take advantage of that lifelink or that first strike. Heraldic Banner gives us a mana, but also buffs all our creatures by +1/+0. Patchwork Banner and Flowering of the White Tree each going to give a little bit of a buff. White Tree can actually give an extra buff to our lizard creatures, which is helpful because we do have a ton of them. I think Cathar's Crusade is one of the telltale signs of any go-wide deck that you're in trouble. Because, of course, whenever another creature comes in, you put a counter on each creature you control, just getting out of hand as we're making, hopefully tokens and humans every turn. Things like Rally the Ranks, we can buff all our creatures, but then another 2 enchantments that work really well for us. Virtual Loyalty at the beginning of our end steps. Each of our end steps, we're going to put a counter on each of our creatures and untap them, effectively giving them Vigilance. But remember that even if they already have Vigilance, they're still going to get untapped and have a counter put on them. And then Legion Loyalty just seems like a ton of fun, giving all of our creatures Myriad, meaning that every creature could get copies of itself attacking our opponents, which are also going to have Greymond's abilities. Now, of course, legendary creatures aren't going to get to take advantage of that Myriad the same way, but it still will be creatures entering if we have abilities that care about that, and it will, hopefully with all of our non-legendary creatures laying around, this will mean that for our tokens and for our other things, we're going to really be dealing big damage every combat. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is our version 1.0 shot at Greymond. I think there's a lot to learn in testing. Mainly, do we have enough of what we need? Mainly with things like a Chroma's Will. Do we have enough of these alpha strikey? Do we need more of these alpha strikey type cards like a Chroma's Will to just pick everything up into the air and give it all these extra abilities and just probably end the game outright? Dazzling Theater was a card I really had in the deck until almost the end, but I took it out because I just wasn't sure, but I think it would make sense, giving all of our creature spells Convoke, using those tokens, right, to help creatures get out. And then with Prop Room, right, untapping them on everybody's upkeep. Untap seems like a great ability. I just didn't know what to put it in for. And then are there other humans we could play? I looked at something like Devout Chaplain, which could tap humans to get rid of an artifact or enchantment, but I just wasn't sure. Are there other humans that we're not playing that we can play to make it better? I think the good thing about something like Greymond is there's probably always going to be new humans, so the deck can always get better in that, right? Let's get into our playtest as we do on the channel, so let's enjoy it. We're keeping a 3-lander with a Pearl Medallion, Guide of Souls, Quendi, and Bastion Protector. So I like this. We've already got the mini combo there. We've got some protection. I think we just go turn 1 Guide of Souls, right? Get that party in, get it started. turn 2, I guess we will play the Emerald or the Pearl Medallion because we don't really have much else to do. This would lead to either a turn 3 Quendi or a turn 3 Greymond, right? Depending on what we want to do. The question is, do we put Bastion Protector down first before we put down, Greymond just to protect ourselves? I guess there's a lot of theory on that, but I think I would just get Greymond in, just get the party started. Now we've got 1 energy. I guess for this, we'll just pick First Strike and Lifelink. I think those are the ones I like the best. I could, of course, understand Vigilance, but I think for me, those are the 2 I value just a little bit forward. Now here on turn 4, right, Bastion's 2 mana, Quendi's 3 mana. We're not up to Greymond's +2/+2 yet, so we just still need to think about that in the back of our mind. I think Bastion makes a ton of sense to start protecting Greymond, right? Make sure that it's safe and sound. We've got 2 mana left. We could leave up the Dawn's Truce and the Reprieve, right? And just take some attacks this turn. Again, they still have First Strike and Lifelink, so they're probably both going to be safer. I think I'd probably just attack with Greymond this turn and 3/4 First Strike Lifelink. I think at this point in the game would be pretty safe to attack. Remember that, it's actually a 5/6 because of Bastion, so it's a great attack, right? And then next turn we can look to put down Quendi and really move in for some more damage. So here, put Quendi down for 3. Now we're up to our energy reserve, enough for God of Souls. Now they'll have Double Strike and Lifelink, right? Now, we get attack with all of them. I'd probably put Guide of Souls in the air with its ability. Just so it can now be a little bit safer, even though it has Double Strike. We're dealing big damage this turn, right? Gaining a ton of life. Now our opponents are in trouble. Yes, we have 1 mana left for the Dawn's Truce, so we are still protecting ourselves, right? We're still in good shape to then, basically just force our opponents to deal with this board. And if they don't, we're just going to keep committing to it. We did also have the Reprieve last turn in case somebody spent a ton of mana to do it. But I think this turn would be the same thing. Put the Benalis Marshal. Now we have the buff. Get another energy. Attack again. I mean, Double Strike, Lifelink. We're just gaining a ton of life. We're going to keep ourselves alive with the Lifelink and just keep continuing to just iterate this board, right, for more buff. Remember that last turn, now they all have +2/+2 because of the Greymond. Now it's +3/+3 because of the Benalis Marshal. And we just iterate that unless somebody has something to say about it, right? We can pretty much move into Playtest 2 because I think we pretty much demonstrated what our goal is here. Pearl Medallion again, Arcane Signet, Horn of Gondor, and a Path to Exile. So, interesting. We see Linden, a white creature that says whenever a white creature we control attacks, we gain a life, which is an interesting ability. I think there's arguments to probably go Pearl Medallion or Arcane Signet, but I think I'm going to go Arcane Signet. I guess it won't matter with Linden, right? Because Linden's going to come down for a triple white anyway. So I guess if I played the Pearl Medallion last turn, I still couldn't get it and Linden down. So Linden would make sense. The Horn of Gondor could also make sense with getting another human in, right, and making sure we have the option to get more humans in later. Making the extra humans every turn, right, just gets better with Greymond because it's more and more creatures on board. So now with 5 mana, I could still do Pearl Medallion, Greymond, but if I do that, I guess I wouldn't be able to keep up something like Path to Exile, but I think we want it for future turns, right? So do that. First Strike Lifelink again, right? And now, right, we just need to get a couple more humans out and we could satisfy, its buff. Here on turn 5, 6 mana disposal, everything's costing 1 less. I could do Linden and then tap, right, to make 3 humans, right? Now we're revealing the +2/+2. These guys can now attack, right? First Strike Lifelink, getting a couple life off of Linden, right? Ideally, right, we could have tried to hold up the Unbreakable formation. But the truth is, now on this turn, I could tap to make more, right? So now I'm tapping to make 6. And I could just Unbreakable formation this turn, give everything a give everything a counter and vigilance until end of turn. So that would basically mean, +1/+1 to the end of turn, already on top of the +2/+2 from Greymond. Now, right, these ones that came in last turn taking a big attack, we're setting these up for next turn. And we have enough mana up for Path to Exile. But the truth is, now someone has to wipe the board, right? Otherwise the game's over. And the truth is we didn't see the protection this time around. I guess we could have waited for the Unbreakable formation, right? And not done it and held it up to protect the board, right? But the truth is, we probably get darn close to knocking somebody out this turn. And the nice part about the Horn of Gondor is even if they wipe the board, we could start growing our board back again, as we put pressure on our opponents. I think that's pretty good to stop there for playtest 2, right? We got basically to where we wanted to be. And we're given a 3-lander with Arcane Signet, Breakable Formation, Hero Bladehold, and Coat of Arms. A very interesting way to buff all of our creatures. There we see Caduceus. I love Caduceus on Greymond, basically as a way to give it indestructible, right? Once we get to a certain life total, making sure we basically always have it out and available. We could Greymond, or we could Hero Bladehold. I guess the only problem with Bladehold, right, is it's not going to activate Greymond just yet. If an opponent has more creatures than us, we could Sunset Revelry this turn, right, to make a couple 1/1s set up for more, right, for that. I think there's probably a pretty safe world where somebody has more creatures than us this turn. So we could do that just to right, make sure we have a couple humans on board. Then we get into this turn. Again, the answer could be Greymond. It could also be Coat of Arms to get the board state better set up. We could always do something like Hero Bladehold and then Greymond next turn, right, to set up an attack. That was one of my thoughts there, because now this turn you could Greymond. Now you pick First Strike Lifelink. Now you're at 4 creatures. They're getting the buff. Take the attack this turn. You make a couple soldiers that are attacking. Again, unfortunately, the soldiers aren't going to get a ton of love this turn, but they, the rest of the stuff will get the battle cry. But my thought there is you move into the next turn where you probably could just drop the Coat of Arms and now everybody's in trouble, right? Because the humans are getting a big buff. These soldiers are going to get a big buff once the Coat of Arms goes off. You could do that, or we could, so 6 mana, you could leave up something like the Unbreakable Formation, play Caduceus, but not equip it, leave up the formation for the protection and attack again. But the truth is, if somebody hasn't removed Greymond at this point, are they going to? I guess my thought is you could just Caduceus this turn to protect Greymond, take another attack, make up more soldiers, right? First Strike, Lifelink, or whatever. And then on this turn, right, Coat of Arms, now we got the free protection. But, maybe you do that first just to protect, Greymond before we commit to the Coat of Arms. But the truth is, we're in a great spot. We have free protection. We could hold this protection up if we really were worried about it. But the point is, Greymond got indestructible, and then our opponent, right, basically would have to remove it with single target removal or to get it off the battlefield. And then, we don't mind having to replay, Greymond if necessary. But this Coat of Arms is going to start growing these soldiers if nobody takes care of the Bladehold. Because there's a world where, if somebody removes, Greymond here, put the Caduceus on the Herald, because we're still out of ton of life total because of all that lifelink. And now you've still got 4 mana left where you could just hold up the Unbreakable or, wait another turn. So I think there's a lot of options there. It just goes to show you how well Greymond can do it going wide. But let me know, what do you think of Greymond down in the comment section below? I think the deck's a ton of fun. I think it hits well for the budget it's at. There's a lot of options to make it better, I'm sure, but I think the deck looks like a ton of fun. And if you've been looking for a Mono White Humans list, maybe it's something you check out. But I'd love to hear what you think, and I will catch you all in the next one.